You're listening to the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Wyatt. You've heard of the Commission on Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks here in Mississippi. Today, you're going to learn who they are and what they do with Commissioner Billy Mounger here on the show.
This episode of the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast is brought to you by the Foundation for Mississippi Wildlife, Fisheries, Parks, and Marine.
You're listening to the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Wyatt. Have you ever heard of the Commission? The Commission on Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, therefore commissioners. Well, we're going to meet one and learn about him and learn about what they do today with Commissioner Billy Mounger here on the show. Mr. Mounger, welcome. Glad to have you on the podcast.
Man, great to be here, and I love what you've been doing. It's an awesome podcast, and it's so informative and fun and great. All the shows. I think this is number 50.
Yeah.
That you've done. That's awesome.
We've been able to stack them up, and we're just scratching the surface because there's so many interesting things.
Yeah.
And the commission, frankly, is one of those where I think there's been times in my life, and there are people listening now that go, wait a minute, commission, what are you talking about? So let's start right there. Help explain to our listeners what is the Commission on Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks and what it does.
Yeah, I have the same experience. Most people don't have no idea what a commissioner is, and sometimes it'll come up. I'll be around people, and I'll say I'm a commissioner of Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, or somebody will call me commissioner, or something as a joke or something. people won't even know what it is, but it is. It's really kind of unique. Not unique to Mississippi. Most states have a commission that's involved with their agencies, wildlife agencies, and different states have them where they're appointed either by the governor or sometimes other ways that they're selected. But Mississippi, over history, has evolved where there's 5 commissioners. They come from basically 5 old congressional districts that Mississippi used to have. I think back in about 1992 or some year, I can't remember exactly, but that's just a way to appoint people from around the state. All the commissioners represent the whole state. We represent everybody. And basic concept of the commission is provide a kind of a sounding board for the agency, for the department, for the staff, and also to be able to make decisions in a way that balances the economic benefit, the social benefit, with the biological benefit of different policies, for example. Now, this particular department, of course, in Mississippi, is part of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. So many states, parks is not part of their agency. And under parks here, that also would entail things like the Natural Science Museum. And there's a lot of public land also that's part of it, the wildlife management areas and many other lands. So basically, the commission on a kind of proactive perspective is to try to create policies or opportunities for citizens to maximize the benefit of our great natural resources.
Yeah.
There's a balance. There's a balance with the biology because the resources need to be protected. There's many challenges, and we can talk about some of those later, some of the big challenges that we all have. But the resources need to be managed in a way that people can enjoy them both for us and for our children, our grandchildren, and for the future. So urbanization, development, pollution, there's all kind of factors that are going on that affect wildlife beyond just managing.
Chip and I were talking earlier as he was kind of educating me a little bit, in a conversation about the commission. And he mentioned something like, or one example would be, say, a bag limit. If there's, people here at Wildlife Fisheries that want to recommend that we need to change a bag limit or a limit on crappie at a certain lake, that's something that the commission has to approve in order for that to go into effect. So
yeah, that's right. The commission has authority given by state constitution, state code, and all that to basically make all decisions having to do with the agency. But really, it's the staff is that really are the experts, and they run it. I don't claim to be an expert. I've tried to be as educated as possible to be the best I can be as a commissioner And I think to do that, you need to be educated. You need to learn best practices of other states, learn the biology as much as possible, learn history, learn things, innovative type things that are going on. But the legislature does give as the authority to the agency and the commission to ultimately decide those type things. So there are examples where the agency staff may propose something and the commission may modify it. Sometimes the other way around, the commission will ask the staff to come up with rules or regulations or create some area to do that. Some things are outside of the limit of the commission. For example, the commission can make changes to non-resident license fees for deer and things like that, but we cannot do it for resident license fees. So we have to. Those are things that we have to go to the legislature for. The legislature has for example, native white-tailed deer that have a season set between October 1st and February. Now we have some leeway as far as youth seasons, special needs people or veterans. We can go beyond that a little bit. But basically that's in statute. Now to do an extra season, for example, the velvet antler deer season was something that we thought was a great idea. Actually, I'd seen it in Kentucky when I was up there turkey hunting a few years ago and thought it was a great thing. And we talked about it within the department here. And then but we had to go outside. We had not outside the agency. We had to go to the legislature. So we started talking to legislators, and it was a 2 or 3 year process to get that done. And some of the legislators were really helpful, and they thought it was a great idea, and it's been a great extra season, but we had to pass that. Legislature had to pass it through the House, or through the Senate, House, both houses, and the governor had to sign it. Now, migratory birds like ducks and dove, those are frameworks that U.S. Fish and Wildlife sets up, and they partnership with Canada and probably Mexico too, birds that are native to North America. And they set the dates for the different flyways, and we can only manage within those dates and the limits.
Okay.
So each
they
state,
set a framework, and then within that, each
right.
state can decide what it needs to be.
A state can change it if they want. They can go less.
Yeah.
For example,
just not more outside of the boundary,
but not more outside the boundaries.
Okay.
And the dates, for example, like our waterfowl seasons, duck season goes now. It can go till January 31st. Well, that actually used to just go till the last Sunday in January. And that was something that we proactively, myself and others, proactively went to our senators here, Sidney Hyde-Smith, Roger Wicker, and others, and they actually introduced a bill where the season could go to the end of January, and then U.S. Fish and Wildlife was involved. They tried to get it done with U.S. Fish and Wildlife before, and they weren't really making any progress. So once that ball got rolling, then it was up to the agencies to get the flyway councils to get involved. And so coincidentally, our agency here was chairman of the Mississippi Flyway Council that year. So they got it, and they got all the states. So you got to get Illinois and Minnesota and all those other states to go along with it too. Mm-hmm. Then other flyways too. So then they got Central Flyway, Pacific Flyway, Atlantic Flyway to go along with it. And then that helps get something passed through Congress. You get that kind of support.
Well, okay. And as you talk through that process, on the outside looking in, it can actually sound complicated just because it illustrates all the working together that it must happen. Here, the agency with the commission, with the legislature here. Now we're talking about a sport that is we nationally are involved. So we got to coordinate with Illinois. And, I think when you look at it that way, now I can easily understand why there's no such thing as snapping my fingers and making changes quickly. Well, in a lot of cases, there's not a way to do it quickly because there's a lot of coordination with a lot of other people that's got to happen to make those things happen, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a process, and it's a big agency. There are a lot of different divisions that have to look at things from different angles. There are unintended consequences sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
On policies, and And a wildlife agency, any agency, can only do certain things. Basically, the regulations or guidelines are for the honest people. And unfortunately, we have the dishonest people out there, the people that intentionally, are trying to break the law. Now, everybody can make mistakes.
Again, it's kind of eye-opening to think, not only, as we mentioned, cooperation and working with, different folks, different states, but also that there's a bit of an ambassador aspect too, isn't it? I mean, the decision-making, obviously, but when you're going and working with these other states, there's a bit of an ambassador aspect too for the state and for the department, I guess, or at least it looks that way.
Obviously, we have one of the best wildlife states in the country.
Sure.
Because we have abundant, deer, turkeys, waterfowl opportunities, all kinds of game, fishing. We have it all. But other states around us do too. And so sometimes what they're doing, we want to be ambassadors. We like non-residents coming here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good. One thing about license fees I should mention is people may not know that every time you buy a license, you're really contributing to the wildlife resources. It gets leveraged 3 to 1. There's an act of Congress a while back called Pittman-Robertson Act.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time you put money into a license, that money gets multiplied for the resources here. So people, a lot of times, I hear people complain about licenses. I don't want to pay $10 for this or that. I said, well, you don't realize, you're really protecting your resource. Yeah. And you're contributing to it. And so but anyway, the example is on a wild turkey situation is there's different opinions on the biologists of other states. A lot of them, in fact, came out of Mississippi State, but they've gone different places. And other states have sort of followed some of the concepts that others had, that maybe a later turkey season, lower limits would be good. And, because they've seen a decline of populations. One of the challenges we're all seeing. And Mississippi's been pretty stable, but other states have seen declines, and some severe in some states. Mm-hmm. And so they've made their season start a lot later, in some cases lowered their limits. I'm talking about every southern state around us. Go away to South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, and then even Oklahoma, Kansas, those places. So anyway, our season still starts March 15th. Every other state is much later. And so for our public land, we have an influx of people coming from other states because we're the earliest state for it to open, except for South Florida. So that's something where the commission has worked with the staff and hoping they're coming up with more ways to kind of limit those out-of-state numbers on the public land, just so the resource can be protected.
Sure. And
the opportunity for Mississippi residents isn't destroyed, because if you go up to a wildlife management area, between Tupelo and Oxford, Holly Springs National Forest, and you go up, there's 30 tags from Arkansas and Tennessee and Alabama and other states. It's, we go hunt those other states, they come here, it's all good. But when the resource gets pressured so much, it decreases the experience for everybody.
Sure. So obviously there's a lot to consider on it. So it's important who the commissioners are. How did you end up in the position and being, on the commission? What was your path that led you there?
I guess it can kind of be in your DNA. And I guess it was in my DNA from a young age, because my father did not hunt at all, or fish really much at all. I think he had bad experiences, he told me, when he was young with his dad. His dad did fish and hunted some. And I think back in the 30s and wherever that was, they would take kids out, and obviously the gear wasn't very good. They'd freeze, they'd make them just go do stuff, and it wasn't very much fun. So he just had a bad experience. Anyway, he never hunted. So I was a kid that would like to go outside and go in the backyard and go in the woods. And in fact, where this agency is, I used to play in these woods right here.
Really?
Because these were they're called state woods. we called them. So we'd come up here. I lived a few blocks from here, and we'd come here and play. But anyway, as it came, since he didn't hunt or fish, I would have to figure out how to do it. And so I had friends, thankfully, that would take me some and end up developing a passion for it and a love for it. And didn't go very much during high school or junior high and high school. Did some, first hunting was over Kings Point Island over by Vicksburg, where my uncle was part of an old camp over there. It's a terrible physical deal, like trailers and rats and cold and freezing, but it was a great experience.
Yeah.
And very few deer. There are very few deer anywhere. But that was where, in this part of the state, there actually were some deer. So you could occasionally see a deer.
Yeah.
It was very exciting just to see a deer, It was a doe. And of course, back then, there's no quality deer management. So people would just shoot anything with antlers, It was funny. But so anyway, did that. And then after college, got into some more outdoor opportunities, would go with people, and didn't really waterfowl hunt until well after college. And my first turkey hunting was way after that even. But I always believed that you should give back to the resources. And I think the agencies are great for what they do and how they manage the resources. And it was actually many, many years before I was a commissioner. As I gotten into the waterfowl, I got asked to be on the board at Delta Waterfowl. And so I learned a lot, still got a lot to learn, but learned a lot about waterfowl and the challenges where they're breeding our ducks here migrate from Dakotas, Canada, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Montana, and the Canadian provinces and other places where they migrate down here. And they're very much challenged up there. So I got to understand that. And then this part of the flyway saw that we didn't really have the quality of hunting, public hunting that had in other states. So I was friends with some of the folks here, and so I offered to take them up, some of the staff and the commissioners up to Missouri to see what Missouri's doing. In Missouri, unlike Mississippi, they let their legislature giving them, I think, 1/8, 1% of all the sales taxes. So they have a very big budget up there, like, I don't know, $200 million a year or something. They've been able to really do a lot. So they've planted places for ducks. They set aside impoundments, and they also set up public hunting that was almost like a sort of private waterfowl hunting, where you had draw hunts, where instead of being just a free for all, which a lot of people like that, and that's all good. We have a lot of places for that, but also Missouri had places where you could go and you were drawn, and you knew if you went to that place, that was your spot, your area. So people wouldn't be setting up right beside you and be calling and shooting the ducks all around you, so you could actually experience ducks working. And so went to Jefferson City, Missouri, and we looked at what they were doing, learned all their best practices, and they ended up, I wasn't a commissioner, but they ended up, staff here and the commission ended up taking on those ideas, and now we have some draw hunts and some great places like in Mahana and Howard Miller and others where we have a great waterfowl draw hunt thing. So that was something that I was involved with well before the commission, and I guess being involved when it comes where the governor, they look for folks that they think might have a passion for this or be interested. And I think I have a lot of different people that want to do this. You don't get paid anything. I mean, it's a service. You need to have a servant's heart, I think.
Sure.
Because, I have no agenda except to do what's best for the state. Try to help this agency the best it can be, and to help protect, manage the resources as best we can. So anyway, I think the governor appoints each commissioner. Phil Bryan appointed me first. The first term, and then Tate Reeves reappointed me. I think also they look at people with experience of running a organization or a business, because it's a big agency.
Sure.
I mean, hundreds of employees and $80 million a year budget, and it takes an understanding of all that as well, of how to help manage and help look at the budgets and the funding, because it takes all that.
Sure. Well, and as you have sort of described, you've just touched on like the tip of the iceberg, kind of what it all has entailed over the years. But so far, I mean, you've mentioned turkey hunting and seasons. We talk about flyways and working with other states, duck hunting, deer hunting in your experience. So it looks to me like there's this life for you of a passion for it. You are a hunter. Somebody got you in deer hunting, and then they introduced you to turkey hunting. You caught that bug, and then now you're can't wait for it to get cold, and you're a duck hunter, And so that there's a passion that seems that also must be there, which is in lockstep with the people here at the agency as well, in order to be effective. Right. Would that be true?
I think it's very true. And the other part, which we talked about before, is fisheries and parks.
Yeah, right.
So parks is something that I've always had a passion for. I actually worked in some city parks when I was in high school. I always really had appreciation for the parks and how that's such a great asset. Hunting's not involved in that, but it gives everybody a chance to be outdoors. The great fishing lakes, great places to camp, and so that's also a passion of mine to help make the parks the best they can be. And I think with the legislature helping, some federal funds that they can match with and other things, I think we put about $65 million into parks just the last few years. Other states around us have some fantastic parks, but ours, I would argue, are getting up or as good or better than any other states. So people need to get out and see the new cabins, the new facilities are being built. Percy Quinn just had a grand opening. Roosevelt State Park's got some things. It's just an unbelievable thing. And LaFleur's Bluff Park here with the Natural Science Museum and partnership with the Children's Museum, the playground, and the agency's working on some really exciting things for the rest of LaFleur's Park, which I think it'll be one of the best urban parks in the country, soon.
I want to comment on that. This weekend I went to go camping at Lake Lincoln State Park, and I originally wanted to go to Roosevelt, and now take you back about 7 years ago. If I wanted to get a campsite at Roosevelt, I could probably go online and book the place I wanted to camp like the week before. This weekend I couldn't find anything at Roosevelt, so I ended up going to Lake Lincoln, which I also like, but they had some spots available there. But it's amazing to see how many more people are going to state parks now.
Yeah,
and it was the same way last year too. Like if you want to go, you better get your spot 2 weeks beforehand, because they've gotten so much more popular since we've done all the renovations and kind of spruce the places up a bit.
I think it's so much better. And things like Buccaneer State Park on the coast, in partnership with C Spire, they made a Wi-Fi network that really covers pretty much the whole park. And the goal is to do that at other parks as well.
I can't help too, but as I listen to you talk and your knowledge, your lifelong experience hunting, fishing in Mississippi, but also then to think about and against the backdrop of we are sitting in a spot that before this building was here, the headquarters of the agency here in Jackson, it was woods, and you grew up a couple of blocks from here. We're sitting where you used to play in the woods as a kid. Yeah. And here we are now in this same spot in this studio talking to you as a commissioner about all these things and working with those states. You have a pretty cool story of your life.
We're blessed. We're all blessed to be here in Mississippi, and the outdoors is one of our great blessings we have. Yeah. That people that enjoy it, and a lot of people choose to live here or move here because of that. Even some of the people I know about working with the Amazon data centers here that are going in, they love the outdoors.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
And we have people that are will come to this state and really enjoy the resources that we have as well. It's something that it's not to take for granted, because it can change. Things can happen. And that's part of what the agency does, is try to maintain it, manage it, enhance the opportunities where we can. It's it's so much more accessible now, for handicapped folks and to go deer hunting or fishing and things like that than it used to be. And we have three great shooting ranges in McHenry, Turcotte, and McIver, which are world class. I mean, they're really, really fantastic. And so the agency's got a lot of things going. One thing I hadn't really touched on is law enforcement. And our law enforcement are just fantastic people and leaders there. They do so much more than people realize. People think that law enforcement, here comes a game warden, he's going to check my license or something. But really, they're there to make it a better experience for everyone. Wildlife. Now, they're fully trained officers, law enforcement. They go through our law enforcement academies. In addition, they go even more than highway patrol or others. They have a whole separate training on the wildlife. So they get involved in a lot of search and rescue. They have a canine unit with dogs, Labrador retrievers, and they've rescued children even recently that have been lost. The search and rescue team just got deployed today, and they're heading to North Carolina to help with the disaster there with Hurricane Helene. That in the past, hurricanes like Katrina and others, I mean, they were the first ones on the ground down there. Many folks here in this agency, they were down there when it was, dead, people and checking buildings and doing the hard stuff. The tornado hit Rolling Fork last year. They were there as soon as it happened. They were there with a command center, organizing, triaging, getting people taken care of, and then trying to get things fixed and organized and back into shape. And so
it's so much more than checking licenses and life jackets. Yeah. And
talk about ambassadors. I mean, they really.
Well, and in the same way that what they are doing as law enforcement officers for wildlife fisheries, it is so much more than what we think or see sometimes. You've kind of illustrated too that the department is so much more than just the idea of game warden. It is truly a big, expansive, and important agency here in the state of Mississippi because our resource is so big and important. And we just thank you, for as commissioner and the commission on wildlife fisheries for what you do, the time you put into it voluntarily. We just appreciate it and appreciate you being on the show. It's really cool to meet you and get to talk about it today.
Well, appreciate you doing this. It's an honor to serve on the commission, even though a lot of people don't know what it is. Maybe more will know after today. But I encourage anyone that has an idea. There's our email address, the phone number here. The agency, if people reach out to us all the time. I would say the commission meetings happen typically once a month. Occasionally we may skip a month, and we go all over the state. A lot of them happen here at the agency headquarters, but we've had meetings at a lot of the state parks around the state and other towns around the state. So we want everybody to feel a part. Anybody that shows up here or wherever a commission meeting is and they want to speak, then they'll have a platform. Yeah. I mean, at least for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We also live stream all those commission meetings on our YouTube channel.
Okay, on the Mississippi Outdoors.
Yeah, where they're watching right now. Hopefully, if they're not on Spotify or Apple, so
they're live streamed. Every meeting's live streamed, and so people watch it anywhere in the world if they want to.
And Chip, I think I also noticed that at the website at MDWFP.com, there's meeting agendas there from the meetings that people can look at, as well as the minutes from those meetings. It's all there on the website. Yeah. So
we try to make it as transparent as possible. So.
Yeah, really good. Billy, thanks so much. It's been a real joy to talk to you. Thank you.
Didn't even talk about near-death experiences.
We'll get into that next time. Yeah, coming up next time with Commissioner Mounger, near-death experiences. Thanks so much. He is Commissioner Billy Mounger of the Commission on Wildlife Fisheries and Parks here on the show. We thank you all for listening, and we'll see you outdoors.